stuck with my voice.
No problem. You can do cool sound effects and stuff.
Thank you.
Ooh. All right. Hello, hello. This is Ross Vertel, faithful reader on the forums, and I am here with a special guest. James, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm James Heaney, BCS Wildbagger on the forums, rules manager, noisy person.
All right, and we're here to go over this deck, which you played at the Minnesota Nationals.
Yeah. Um, I do think of the Minnesota Nationals, although they were the Nationals for the whole United States. Everyone could come, and we had a good turnout. I was pleased, given what short notice it was. It was really great that Michael Van Bremen was able to book a flight all the way over here. Brian Schlafen from Chicago was able to get up, and we had a couple other drop-ins. The South Dakota crew was able to come down, so we had a decent body of people filling up the room for a national that was posted with like 3 weeks of notice.
Yeah, and there were what, double digits numbers of people there, I
I
think.
think that's right. It was very nice. I'm gonna look now. There were
Okay.
12 people in that room. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So normally the first question that I have is what experience do you have playing with this kind of deck? What made you pick it? But since this is a modification of your Nationals deck, sorry, of your Worlds deck,
Right.
what made you want to play it at Worlds, and then what made you want to bring it to Nationals?
That's fair. So I played a deck like this at Worlds 2022, and I actually had planned on this being my main deck at Worlds 2022 until I hit on the trick that won me Worlds that year. And it's At the time, the Final Frontier let you download a ship. And what this deck did at the time was you would just download the Galgathong on turn one. You would immediately use its special download to get its matching commander, and then you'd tank up a bunch of stuff. And you would put your giant, beefy tactical console plus captain's log Galgathong on engage cloak on like turn two, and then it would sit there the whole game, and your opponent would be like, oh shoot, if I do anything, a 17 weapons Romulan bird of prey will decloak and attack me. I'd better be very quick and stealthy. And then they would go to do a mission, and they'd run into a trap, and they would die. um, and I thought that was just a nice little gimmick for a deck. Mild pressure on the opponent while still getting to do your own thing on your end of the space line without, having to lock out the opponent. It's not a lockout deck, it's just a really annoying pressure deck. But then, Final Frontier got nerfed. I advocated for nerfing Final Frontier, so hoisted on my own petard. And I thought this deck was dead because I no longer had that opening download. But Chris Sonstaby, lore on the forums, encouraged me. He said, I still think this deck has legs. It still solves really fast, faster than you expected, which was true. I said, but Chris, they nerfed the Final Frontier. I helped nerf the Final Frontier so that I'd have to cut all the non-aligned people on my deck and all the unique personnel. I'd have to balance it out so it's universals and uniques. He said, I think you can do it. And he was right. So I was able to get this thing slimmed down in 2025. So it's really mostly Romulans. You no longer can depend on getting Galgathong on the first turn because you don't have that download, but I put in enough copies of Commander Sharvanek and her battle cruiser and a Ready Room Door in the draw deck so that one way or another, by about turn two, you're going to get a ship, you're going to get a matching commander, and you're going to be okay. And so I can still put a lot of pressure on the opponent, and then I can go do my solving. And I can't solve as fast as the old version of the deck could, but I can still solve plenty fast because it is a 2-mission win deck. And so going into nationals, sorry, this is a much longer answer than you probably wanted.
No, no, go ahead.
Finally, going into nationals, I was like, I don't have any plans of winning nationals, but I do want to be respectable. I want to put up a decent fight for Van Bremen or Jaeger if I face them. And I know this deck is okay. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good deck. It did well in a local a little while ago, and I didn't want to play a lockout, so I was just like, this is a good mid range deck. that will not embarrass me at nationals. And indeed, it did not embarrass me at nationals. I'm quite pleased with how it did. Third place is right about where I would have liked to have finished with it. Although, as we'll talk about, I'm sure I think I could have done better with it had I played it a little smarter.
Yeah, because I was looking at the missions, doing some math in my head. So you're gonna solve a couple of them, even if you don't get this nice GDC 45 pointer. You've got points with the Preserver Obelisk and test for test for weapons.
Yeah.
So
So you kind of do really want to investigate Shattered Space. I don't want Patrolled Neutral Zone in the deck right now. Patrolled Neutral Zone is mostly there as a decoy. Like people are going to fortify that mission because it's worth so many points. It's 50 points just on my deck and on my missions. And if the opponent has anything in neutral zone, of course, it goes up. So it can be a very valuable mission that the opponent will then put a bunch of dilemmas under. But there just aren't any other good Romulan space missions to use. So I'm kind of stuck with it. But it is a good fallback. If I can't do Shattered Space, I can go over to Patrol Neutral Zone. I can still rack up a bunch of points. It's not a 2-mission win deck if you can't get one of those 2 missions, though, I think. Because you need, otherwise, you got to have the bonus points from. Maybe it is. No, I'm thinking it through. I'm trying to remember what the math is on it is. Because you are getting the bonus points for test from weakness, and you are getting the bonus points from the Preserver Obelisk. You can get Armug for Gamma Hydra, which is my usual first planet mission, and you can get the Keeper on Talos 4 if you're really strapped for points, or if Hydra 4 is locked off for some reason. So it's very flexible, and then you can get a lot of bonus points off of getting under your skin, which it generally does as quickly as it can. You do it on turn 1 if you don't have a ship and a Mansion Commander ready to go, and you do it on turn 2 if you do have a turn 1 ship and a Mansion Commander. Getting under your skin is a really good card with this deck because this deck puts so many captain's orders on the table. And so you can just keep on going. Let me see the top card of your deck, and it usually scores you 5 points every time you do.
yeah, at 36, this is a pretty slim deck.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me just scroll up to getting under your skin. Um, so I did notice that, yeah, you went the TOS or 23rd century route. And I also noticed that you had Silk and Excaliban Kalis
Excalibur and
there.
Kalis, yes. They are the survivors from when I cut the original version of this deck has it was a TOS deck before they nerfed Final Frontier. So it had Alice series, Barber series, Excalibur Zora, Khan Noonien Singh, Reina Capek, all the greats. And then I had to really painfully go through a process of cutting them all. And Sisalk stayed because he scores 5 extra bonus points, which sometimes is useful with Test for Weakness. And Excalibur and Kalis stayed because that extra, he's basically a walking communicator, and that's just too useful to pass up.
Okay. So you have this deck. What are you hoping to not face? What is the kryptonite to this deck?
I don't know, actually. I do know. It's Van Bremen's 2 Homeworld deck, which I think I haven't watched most of the rounds, but I think he brought it to this event, so he read that meta correctly. This deck hates the double homeworld deck because it can't do anything to it. The whole deck is oriented around I want to put pressure on you with my ships, or alternatively, if you are going aggro against me, I want to hide my ships and make it really annoying and frustrating for you to hunt me down. Um, but the 2 homeworld deck is just like I'm gonna keep doing my own thing, and I'm gonna ignore what you're doing, and nothing you do is going to matter. So it turns the game back into a speed solver on both sides, and if it's a pure speed solver on both sides, I can't win that. Um, and so that deck is a very tough matchup for me. I hate that.
Yeah, but the deck played as well as you expected at the event.
Yeah, it did what it was supposed to do. It even did better than it was supposed to do a couple of times.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that you went up against a Borg deck and that still worked out pretty well.
It did. Um, do you want me to talk about that game? Because
Oh,
it was a
please.
good game. Yeah. Kevin Yeager was playing a next generation Borg deck. I knew about that because I'd been called over for end of the game ruling on the previous game, which accidental scouting. But I did know going into that game that he was playing next generation Borg, which in retrospect did give me a bit of an advantage in the dilemma phase. But he was using the Satanic clock to put it on his J25 cube and then just blow everybody to hell, which is a good strategy. I think it's a good way to get around the Borg battle restrictions. But I was able, by good luck, to draw into Praxis early, or not Praxis. It is Praxis. He's the Romulan who downloads cloak maneuvers in place of a card draw. I got him pretty early in the game, and Cloaked Maneuvers is just this wonderful card that lets you cloak your ship after doing a mission attempt, even if you're stopped, uh, or anything else, or it lets you. You can even lets you just cloak a second time, so you can decloak and then use cloak maneuvers to recloak. So you could do two cloaking operations in the same turn. And that allowed me to just stay out of his line of fire. Yeah, every time he made a move in my direction, I would play a cloaked maneuvers. Ship would vanish. He would have nothing to shoot at. He didn't have any way through a cloaking device. And then I could do missions from behind. Every time I went into the mission, I could just play cloak maneuvers on my ship, and boop, it escaped. I did lose a ship to a Cytherians and an assimilate starship dilemma combo, but that is expected when facing the Borg, and so I had put relatively few people on that ship. Uh, in retrospect, I actually spent I'd never faced an aggressive deck with this deck. I'd always planned to do cloaked maneuvers to hide myself from bad guys who were coming after me, but I'd never actually had to do it before, and it's very hard to fishbowl that. Um, so it was my first time doing it, and in retrospect, I was much too cautious. I spent a number of turns just reporting personnel, decloaking to pick up the personnel, and then recloaking immediately. So I was building up these large forces in hopes of doing one big mission attempt at the end. What I should have been doing, as I realize now, is having a couple of people work on mission attempts while everyone else was in hiding. And that would have worn away a few more dilemmas and given me a little bit more time at the end to solve my final missions. If I had done that, I would have won that game, which would have been nice. I've never beaten Kevin Yeager before, and I still haven't, as it happens, because he was just a little bit faster than I was. Once he realized he wasn't going to shoot me, he went over to solving and solved very effectively. It's very hard to slow down the Borg, especially the next generation Borg.
Right. So this deck clearly has legs. It won worlds. It's top three in nationals.
Well,
I,
it did.
I
To be fair, it was World's Day 1, and I think I finished 4th that day.
okay.
It wins, it loses. It's a good, reliable deck. And one of the things I like most about it is it plays a little bit different every time because it really depends a lot on what you draw in your hand. If you've got a lot of cloak maneuvers in your hand, you're going to be more aggressive in certain ways. If you've got your matching commanders very quickly, you can be more aggressive in certain other ways. If you've got your solvers and Excalibur Kalis really early, but none of your cloaked ships, then you're going to be doing more of a speed solver approach that day. And so you're always having to adapt to what the deck does, and that's fun, but also a little bit risky at high level events.
Okay. Um, so are you going to make any other changes to this deck, or is this deck pretty much as good as it can get until we get more TOS Romulans?
Oh, I don't know if we'll ever get more TOS Romulans. It seemed to me that design was pretty tapped out on images last time we looked. Um, I don't know. I think there is more, like, the deck could use one more good verb, like a space-time portal. I had some space time portals in the world's version of the deck to bounce it in case of a Cytherians, or like a meta call, like a temporal conduit, so it can travel back and attack people at a time location. But I guess any tweaks I made to this would probably be meta calls. I think this is a good baseline version of the deck, and that's probably not going to change. The thing I really want is a couple new neutral zone missions. And I say that as a player, not as a designer. I'm not sure design should give neutral zone any better mission selection, but as a person building this deck, I would love a bit better mission selection.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the skills you have. Obviously, there's some you have more than others, but you don't really have any big gaps from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, that level of astrophysics makes me very nervous. Astrophysics, I don't know if this is true in every meta, but the cloud is always a big deal in my meta. And the cloud requires 2 astrophysics to avoid a 2-turn stop and damage. And damage, of course, turns off your cloaking device, which is very bad news for this deck. Um, so only having 3 astrophysics in the deck is very unnerving and is a hole, I think. But you do have a classic communicator, and you have an Excalibur Kalis to kind of relieve that. And you've got the download on Galgathong, and you've got the download on the Battle Cruiser. So there are ways to get an astrophysics very quickly, um, if you really need it, if you're in a pinch.
Yeah. And we talked about the game you played against Kevin Yeager, but the other two games went pretty well as you would plan.
Well, my game against Caitlin O'Connor is actually a brand new player. She is an old friend of mine from high school, the sister of our local player Kevin, and she we invited her to this event sort of as a like, we're gonna have this nationals tournament. You want to come? And she's like, yeah, sure. And we were quite astonished actually. And she said, will you build me a deck? So I built her deck, and then I kind of spent the whole first round trying to kind of teach her the ropes of the game, because she hadn't actually played the game before. It turns out her son is interested in learning the game, which is why she wanted to learn it, so she could come back and be like, "Hey, I know how to play Star Trek cards now." So that game was mostly a teaching experience, to be honest, and I barely won it, because we were going so slowly, because we were going through things like, here's how you beam and here's how you launch a shuttle. Um, that She ended up was playing in the Delta Quadrant with Feds, pulled ahead with a couple of missions, and only in the very last turn was I able to sneak in and solve one mission for 50 points plus 5 bonus points from a V'ger sheet thrown at me that didn't hit. And that was how I got a mod win in that game by the skin of my teeth. Um, all things considered, I'm not entirely sure that game shouldn't have been just charged to me as a missed game, because it wasn't really tournament conditions. I was playing a complete noob who didn't know the game. So all things considered, I'm glad that I did not win nationals, because I would not have felt like it was entirely fair. Everyone else had to play a real first round and game, and that was not a real game, as I think Caitlin would be the first to agree.
Yeah.
My second round game went very nicely. I was playing against Charles Schwartz's Vulcan deck, and it did just what it was supposed to. He was constantly feeling like he was going to get shot at, and so he was very nervous about moving, and he was right to, because I was planning to shoot him every single turn of the game. And that left him just without a lot of moving options. It slowed him down, and while he was slowed up, I was solving. So that is exactly what the deck wants to do.
Yeah.
He never even hit the Nelvana trap. I never even shot him. It just pinned him down because of the psychological pressure. Also, and people who don't play battle decks underestimate this. People get on tilt when they know you're trying to shoot them. And it's easy to make big mistakes when you think, oh no, this guy's trying to shoot me. It freaks people out. And there's a psychological value in playing a deck like this that I think people who only play solvers underestimate.
Yeah, you mentioned in the deck notes that Nelvana Trap is kind of there to help with other quadrants.
Yes,
So,
I mean it's there because it's a good. Actually, I built the whole deck around Nirvana Trap. I saw Nirvana Trap come out. I thought that's a cool card. I want to use that. The original version of this deck had 2 copies of Engage Cloak, not one. Actually, this one also has 2 copies of Engage Cloak, not one, but it's hard to get the second one out. Um, I just wanted to build around it. I wanted to shoot people at Nirvana Trap. I wanted to shoot at them with a really big ship, and this deck seemed like the way to do it. So everything sort of flowed from that desire. Nirvana Trap is important in all the versions of the deck because even if someone managed to evade your battle fleet, they're going to run into Nirvana Trap at a space mission and still get shot. And usually they're surprised because they've never seen this card before, or they've seen this card once and they've forgotten it exists. So they're just doing their mission. They're like, haha, I escaped your 17 weapon ship. And then, papa, my 17 weapon ship appears and blows you up. But yes, as the deck notes say, if your opponent is in a different quadrant, Nirvana Trap is your only way to get to them. And that makes it doubly important. In a previous tournament, Dan Van Kampen was playing Herosian in the Delta Quadrant. He decided for the first time in years not to bring a Battle Bridge Door because why would you need a Battle Bridge Door? You're playing Fanatic Hunters in the Delta Quadrant. Who's going to come fight you? And he now walked in and out on a trap, and guess what? I came to fight him, and I had just enough weapons to hit him because he didn't have a Battle Bridge Door. He was very sad. I blew up all his Fanatic Hunters. He was he was very annoyed. Well, actually, he was charmed. He's a great guy to play with. Yes, that's what you want. You want to jump into another quadrant, blow up their stuff, and just run around and make as much havoc as you can with your ship.
and then they just kind of sit there for the rest of the game, though.
Well, no. Once they're there, you hit them with the Nirvana Trap, probably damage them. If you're lucky, might destroy them. You play cloaked maneuvers to put them on Engage Cloak, and then they're on Engage Cloak in a different quadrant, and they can pop up anywhere, anytime in that quadrant, and they remain a threat for the rest of the game. Which is so they are stuck in that quadrant, but they can do a lot of havoc. I think I had 5 battles in my game with Dan Van Kampen because I just kept popping up and shooting him and then disappearing again with cloak maneuvers.
Cool. That pretty well covers everything. Anything you want to add before we end this?
No, thanks to everyone for coming out for nationals. I hope everyone had a good time. I know there was a very controversial round, and I understand why it was controversial, but I hope it didn't ruin the day for anybody. I think that's all I have to say.
Cool. Oh, you mentioned needing more TOS Romulans. I think our only hope for that is Strange New Worlds. Let me just
Oh
go in
yeah,
here, look at. Hold
yeah,
on,
they do have those.
I've
But I'm a big opponent of Strange New Worlds cards being able to be part of Final Frontier. I think they're different properties and they should be isolated to one another. So
yeah,
we could definitely see some kind of Romulan thing, but I don't think they should fit in this deck. But that's a ideological view, a design view rather than a player view.
yeah.
Obviously, as a player, I'd love to have more Romulans for this.
Well, let me just take a look at some of the feature scripts. All right, season 4, puppet episode, Klingon puppet episode. Yeah, I think we're good.
Wait,
So
what? There's 2
yeah,
puppet episodes?
no.
What? Oh.
um, so thanks for coming down, James. Really appreciate you telling us about the deck.
Thanks for
Thank
making
everyone.
stuff for the game. Spreading putting things on YouTube. This is important work. I'm glad you're doing it.
Cool, thanks. Thanks everyone for listening. If you have any questions, post something on the forums, and yeah, we'll see you next time.